Picture this, it's 2006, and somewhere in America, a grown man, a federal agent, no less, is squeezing himself into a fat suit, pulling on a floral house dress, and preparing to infiltrate suburban family life by pretending to be a sassy, heavy-set grandmother. Now, if that sounds absolutely insane to you, congratulations, you're a rational human being. But if that sounds like the perfect Friday night at the movies, then buckle up, because we're diving deep into one of the most audaciously bizarre comedy sequels of the 2000s, Big Momma's House 2. Here's the question that haunted Hollywood executives in the early 2000s: how do you follow up a surprise comedy hit where Martin Lawrence dressed in drag and somehow made it work? The answer, apparently, was simple: do it again, but this time with a better wig budget and throw in some commentary about modern parenting. Because nothing says family values quite like a federal agent deceiving children while investigating national security threats. But before we dismiss this as just another cash grab sequel, let's ask ourselves something more interesting. What does it say about us that we showed up in droves to watch this? What made Big Momma such a cultural phenomenon that warranted not just one sequel, but eventually became a trilogy? And more importantly, is there actually something deeper lurking beneath all that latex and lipstick? Today, we're going on a journey. We're going to dissect, analyze, and fully explore every inch of Big Momma's House 2. We're talking plot breakdowns, character psychology, thematic subtext, and yes, we'll address the elephant, or should I say, the Big Momma, in the room: how this movie somehow manages to be both completely ridiculous and weirdly heartfelt at the same time. We'll explore why Martin Lawrence's commitment to physical comedy deserves more respect than it gets, how this film accidentally stumbled into some legitimate commentary about work-life balance and gender roles, and whether or not this sequel justified its existence beyond just making money. So grab your granny panties and your surveillance equipment, we're going undercover. Movie overview, context and expectations. Big Momma's House 2 hit theaters on January 27, 2006, during that weird post-New Year's, pre-Valentine's Day dumping ground that studios typically reserve for films they don't expect to be prestige pictures. Directed by John Whitesell, who'd previously helmed the surprisingly successful Malibu's Most Wanted, this sequel arrived 6 years after the original Big Momma's House shocked everyone by grossing over $173 million worldwide on a $30 million budget. The original film, directed by Roger Gosnell and released in 2000, had been a genuine surprise. Critics weren't kind, it sat at a rough 30-something% on Rotten Tomatoes, but audiences ate it up. There was something undeniably entertaining about watching Martin Lawrence, at the height of his comedic powers, transform into Hattie Mae, the titular Big Momma. The film combined elements of Mrs. Doubtfire, Stakeout, and good old-fashioned slapstick, creating a formula that somehow worked despite all logic suggesting it shouldn't. So here we are in 2006. Martin Lawrence was still a bankable star, though his movie career had been somewhat inconsistent following the original. The cultural landscape had shifted slightly, reality TV was exploding, the war on terror was in full swing, and family comedies were beginning to explore slightly edgier territory while still maintaining that PG-13 sweet spot. The cast brought back Lawrence as FBI agent Malcolm Turner, who once again transforms into Big Momma. Emily Procter, known primarily from CSI Miami at this point, plays Leah Fuller, the suspicious wife at the center of the investigation. Nia Long returns briefly as Sherri, Malcolm's wife from the first film, though her role is significantly reduced. The real scene stealers, though, are the Fuller kids, played by Dennings, in one of her earliest roles, Chloë Grace Moretz. Yes, that Chloë Grace Moretz. And Preston Bailey and Kat Dennings' younger co-stars. The film was produced by 20th Century Fox with a budget reportedly around $40 million, a modest increase from the original, but still firmly in the mid-budget comedy range that's sadly become extinct in modern Hollywood. The marketing leaned heavily on nostalgia for the original while promising that this time, Big Momma would be dealing with kids, adding a Mary Poppins-esque element to the undercover chaos. Expectations were Complicated. Sequels to comedy hits are notoriously difficult to pull off. For every Ghostbusters 2 that managed to be entertaining despite not matching the original, there were a dozen Weekend at Bernie's 2 situations. Critics were already sharpening their knives, but the studio was banking on the same audience that made the first film a hit, showing up for round 2. And honestly, they largely did. The film grossed $141 million worldwide, not quite matching the original's adjusted totals, but still a solid success that validated the franchise's existence. But here's what's fascinating about Big Momma's House 2 in retrospect. It arrived at a very specific moment in comedy history. The Farrelly Brothers' gross-out era was winding down, Judd Apatow was about to revolutionize comedy with the 40-Year-Old Virgin's success leading to Knocked Up, and family comedies were caught between the gentle PG-rated Disney fare and the harder PG-13 territory. This film tried to split the difference, giving adults enough winking humor while keeping things safe enough for families. It was also Martin Lawrence's show entirely. By this point, his brand of physical comedy, street-smart persona, and willingness to fully commit to absurd premises had made him one of the few African-American comedic leads who could open a movie based on his name alone. The Bad Boys franchise had established him as an action comedy guy, but Big Momma was something different. It required vulnerability, precision physical comedy, and a certain fearlessness about how he'd be perceived. Now, let's get into what actually happens in this movie. And trust me, what happens is a lot. The full story, scene by scene breakdown. Act 1, family man turned agent again. The film opens not with Big Momma, but with Malcolm Turner, and that's a smart choice. We need to understand who this man is when he's not wearing a fat suit and a wig. We're introduced to Malcolm's domestic life. He's married to Sherri from the first film, they have a young son named Trent, and Malcolm has made a conscious decision to step away from undercover work. He's taken a desk job at the FBI, and while it's not glamorous, it allows him to be present for his family. This opening sequence is crucial for establishing the central conflict that will drive the entire film, the tension between career ambition and family responsibility. Malcolm is at Trent's karate class, watching his son struggle with confidence. The other kids are more aggressive, more skilled, and Trent is getting discouraged. Malcolm gives him a pep talk about being tough, about not letting anyone push you around. The irony, of course, is that Malcolm himself is being pushed around, by fatherhood, by domestic responsibilities, by the very real demands of trying to be present. There's a wonderful little moment here where another father makes a dismissive comment about Malcolm's desk job, suggesting that real men have more exciting careers. It's a small beat, but it plants the seed of Malcolm's bruised ego, his desire to prove he's still got it, that he's still the guy who can go undercover and crack cases, not just the guy who files reports and attends school functions. Then we get the inciting incident. Malcolm's former partner, Doug Hudson, arrives with an opportunity that's too good to pass up. There's a case, a big one. A computer security specialist named Tom Fuller has created a worm, a piece of malicious software that could theoretically access unauthorized computer systems. The problem? Tom might be developing this technology for criminals, or possibly even terrorists. It's the mid-2000s, remember, so anything involving computers and potential terrorism was basically the FBI's top priority. Here's where it gets complicated. Tom Fuller works from home, and his wife, Leah, is looking for a nanny. The Fuller household is the perfect surveillance opportunity. Get someone inside, monitor the family, figure out what Tom is really up to, and if necessary, locate the worm before it can be used for nefarious purposes. You can see where this is going. Malcolm initially refuses. He's done with undercover work. He's committed to his family. He made promises to Sherri. But Doug knows exactly which buttons to push. He appeals to Malcolm's ego, his sense of duty, and most importantly, his competitive nature. Are you really going to be just a paper pusher forever? It's a question that cuts deep. The scene where Malcolm tells Sherri he's taking the assignment is masterfully awkward. Lawrence plays it with just enough guilt that we believe this marriage is real. Sherri is not happy. She's seen this before. She knows what undercover work does to Malcolm, to their family, to their sense of normalcy. But she's also supportive in that way that real partners are, even when they're frustrated. She extracts a promise: "This is the last time. One more job." Then Malcolm hangs up Big Momma's dress for good. Of course, we all know how these promises turn out. The transformation, becoming Big Momma again. The transformation sequence is where the film really announces what it's going to be. We get the full montage: Malcolm at the FBI's special effects department, being fitted for the prosthetics, the padding, the wig. The film doesn't shy away from how uncomfortable this process is. This isn't some magical transformation, it's hours in a makeup chair, layers of latex being glued to skin, and the physical discomfort of wearing what amounts to a full body costume. But there's something almost ritualistic about it too. Malcolm is putting on armor, in a sense. Big Momma isn't just a disguise, she's a persona, a character that Malcolm inhabits completely. And the film deserves credit for showing us that Lawrence understands the difference. When he's Malcolm in the fat suit, he's uncomfortable, constricted, and aware of the absurdity. But when he's Big Momma, there's a different energy, confident, sassy, maternal, and commanding. The voice work alone is impressive. Lawrence doesn't just pitch his voice higher, he changes his entire speech pattern, his rhythm, his attitude. Big Momma has her own personality, her own way of moving through the world. She's not just Malcolm pretending to be an old woman, she's a fully realized character that Malcolm channels. We also get a briefing on the Fuller family. Tom Fuller, the target, is a quiet, nerdy guy who works from home as an independent security consultant. His wife, Leah, is a former party girl who's now drowning in the responsibilities of being a stay-at-home mom to 3 kids: Molly, the teenage daughter who's boy-crazy and rebellious; Carrie, the middle child who's artistic and sensitive; and Andrew, the youngest, who's essentially a tiny anarchist. Leah is also involved in some kind of community organization, constantly planning events and trying to maintain their family's social standing. The family is upper-middle-class suburban, living in one of those neighborhoods where every house looks vaguely the same and everyone's lawn is perfectly manicured. It's the kind of setting that screams normal American family, which makes it the perfect cover for potential criminal activity. Entering the Fuller house. Big Momma's interview with Leah Fuller is a masterclass in comedic tension. Leah is desperate for help, her previous nanny quit, her house is chaos, and she needs someone immediately. Big Momma arrives with a fake resume, fake references, and the supreme confidence that only a federal agent in disguise can muster. The comedy here comes from multiple sources. First, there's the physical comedy, Big Momma navigating the Fuller house in her bulky costume, trying to appear graceful and capable while actually being deeply uncomfortable. Second, there's the verbal sparring, Leah asks probing questions about childcare philosophy, and Big Momma has to improvise answers that sound legitimate. And third, there's the dramatic irony, we know what's really going on, but the Fuller family is completely oblivious. Emily Procter plays Leah with an interesting mix of frazzled desperation and underlying shrewdness. She's not stupid, she's exhausted. There's a moment where she looks at Big Momma with something like suspicion, and we hold our breath, thinking the jig is up. But then one of the kids starts screaming about something, and Leah's attention is pulled away. The chaos of family life becomes Big Momma's best cover. The kids themselves are immediately skeptical. Molly, played by a young Kat Dennings with perfect teenage disdain, makes it clear she doesn't need a nanny and resents Big Momma's presence. Carrie is quieter but watchful, the kind of kid who sees more than adults give her credit for. And Andrew is pure ID, running, screaming, destroying things with the casual confidence of a child who knows he can get away with it. Big Momma's first day is an absolute disaster. She's supposed to be surveilling Tom, who spends most of his time locked in his home office, but she can't get close because the kids demand constant attention. She's supposed to be planting listening devices and searching for evidence, but she's instead cleaning up spilled juice and breaking up sibling fights. The spy mission and the domestic responsibilities are in constant conflict, and it's driving Malcolm insane. There's a particularly brilliant sequence where Big Momma is trying to install a camera in Tom's office while simultaneously preventing Andrew from microwaving something he definitely shouldn't microwave. The physical comedy is Buster Keaton level, Lawrence moving between rooms, trying to maintain both the investigation and the household, failing at both in increasingly spectacular ways. The domestic war begins. As the days progress, the film settles into a rhythm that's actually quite clever. Each day brings new challenges, both professional and domestic. On the investigation front, Tom remains frustratingly clean. He works, he interacts with his family, he seems like a normal guy. There's no evidence of criminal activity, no suspicious contacts, nothing that would justify the FBI's surveillance. But on the domestic front, Big Momma is getting deeper and deeper into the family's real issues. Molly is sneaking out to see a boy that Leah doesn't approve of. Carrie is being bullied at school for her artistic interests. Andrew has behavioral problems that stem from a lack of attention and structure. And Leah herself is slowly unraveling under the pressure of trying to be the perfect suburban mom while her husband emotionally checks out into his work. Here's where the film does something unexpectedly sophisticated. It makes Malcolm actually become invested in these people. This isn't just a surveillance job anymore. He starts to care about these kids, to see their problems as real and solvable. And more importantly, he starts to see himself in this family, a father so focused on his career that he's missing his children's lives. A mother drowning in domestic responsibilities while her partner remains oblivious. The scene where Big Momma sits down with Carrie after she comes home crying from school is genuinely touching. Carrie explains that kids make fun of her drawings, that she doesn't fit in, that she wishes she could be normal. And Big Momma, no, Malcolm, really, talks to her about being true to yourself, about how the things that make you different are actually your strengths. It's a conversation Malcolm should be having with his own son. And the film is smart enough to let us see Lawrence's face show that recognition. There's also an absolutely hilarious subplot involving Leah's community organization. Big Momma gets roped into helping plan some kind of charity event, which means attending meetings with other suburban moms, all of whom have their own agendas and social hierarchies. The comedy here is both broad and observational. Lawrence plays Big Momma as utterly baffled by the social politics of suburban motherhood, while also finding ways to cut through the nonsense with her no-nonsense attitude. One of the other moms, played with perfect passive-aggressive energy, keeps making subtle digs at Leah's parenting and household management. Big Momma, unable to resist defending Leah, fires back with some choice words that leave the entire group stunned. It's a moment that establishes Big Momma as a protector of this family, even if they don't know they need protecting. The investigation intensifies. Meanwhile, the actual FBI investigation is going nowhere. Malcolm's handlers are getting impatient. They need results, they need evidence, and they need it soon. Doug Hudson, Malcolm's partner, keeps pressuring him to dig deeper, to take risks, to remember that he's there as an agent, not actually as a nanny. This creates an interesting moral tension. Malcolm is starting to believe that Tom Fuller might actually be innocent, that maybe the FBI got this one wrong. But he can't ignore the possibility that Tom really is developing this worm for criminals. The stakes are too high. If this technology gets into the wrong hands, it could compromise national security. So Big Momma starts taking more risks. She sneaks into Tom's office late at night, searching through files, copying hard drives, looking for any evidence of wrongdoing. These scenes are shot with genuine tension. The film temporarily abandons the comedy for something closer to a thriller. We watch Big Momma navigate the dark house, trying not to wake anyone, using her FBI training to crack passwords and bypass security measures. And that's when she finds something. Not on Tom's computer, but in the garage. There's equipment there, sophisticated stuff, the kind of thing that could absolutely be used to develop malicious software. There are also encrypted communications, meetings scheduled with individuals who have questionable backgrounds. Maybe Tom isn't as innocent as he seems. But here's the twist, and it's a twist that the film actually sets up quite well. Tom isn't the one behind it. His wife, Leah is the real criminal. The revelation that Leah Fuller is the actual mastermind is both surprising and, in retrospect, perfectly foreshadowed. Go back through the film, and you'll see the clues. Leah's past as a party girl is mentioned but never explained. Her obsessive need for money and social status seems extreme for someone married to a successful security consultant. Her interest in Tom's work always seemed a bit too pointed, a bit too specific. Leah isn't working alone, she's part of a larger criminal organization that plans to use Tom's worm to access financial systems. Tom, brilliant but socially naive, has no idea his work is being stolen and weaponized. Leah has been playing the role of overwhelmed suburban mom as her own cover, using her family and her community involvement as camouflage for criminal activity. When Malcolm figures this out, he's stunned. He's been surveilling the wrong person. Worse, he's developed genuine affection for these kids, and now he has to face the reality that their mother is a criminal who's been using them as props in her con. The film handles this revelation with more nuance than you might expect. Leah isn't a monster, she's someone who made bad choices, who got involved with the wrong people, and who convinced herself that she was doing it for her family's benefit. She genuinely loves her children, even if her way of providing for them is illegal and ultimately destructive. The emotional core. This is where Big Momma's House 2 reveals its secret weapon. It's actually a film about parenthood, responsibility, and what we're willing to sacrifice for our families. Malcolm, watching this family implode, sees his own reflection. He's been so focused on his career, on proving himself as an agent, that he's been missing his own son's life. Trent's struggles at karate, his need for a present father. Malcolm has been as absent as Tom Fuller, just in different ways. There's a beautiful parallel structure here. Tom works from home but might as well be on another planet for all the engagement he has with his kids. Malcolm is physically away but emotionally invested in his son. Both men are failing at fatherhood, just through different mechanisms. Big Momma starts actively trying to help the Fuller kids, not as part of the investigation, but because they deserve better. She confronts Molly about the boy she's seeing, and it turns out he's actually a decent kid who Leah disapproved of purely out of classist reasons. She helps Carrie stand up to her bullies by teaching her self-defense and confidence. She gives Andrew structure and attention, channeling his chaos into productive energy. These scenes work because Martin Lawrence commits to them fully. He's not winking at the camera or playing these moments for ironic laughs. Big Momma's investment in these children is genuine, and Lawrence plays it straight, allowing the emotion to land without undercutting it with comedy. There's a sequence where Big Momma takes all three kids to the beach, ostensibly to surveil a meeting Leah is having, but really because the kids need a break from their stressful home life. They build sand castles, play in the waves, and for a few hours, they're just kids having fun with someone who's actually paying attention to them. Malcolm, watching them laugh, realizes what he's been missing with his own son. The climax, everything falls apart. Of course, the surveillance operation can't stay secret forever, and the film builds to a climax that's equal parts action, comedy, and genuine tension. Leah's criminal partners show up at the Fuller house to collect the worm and make their final arrangements. They're dangerous people, not comic book villains, but the kind of cold, business-like criminals who see violence as simply another tool. Their presence in this suburban home, around these children, raises the stakes considerably. Big Momma, realizing what's happening, has to make a choice. She can maintain her cover and call in the FBI, keeping herself safe and letting the professionals handle it. Or she can intervene directly, potentially blowing her cover but protecting the Fuller children from immediate danger. Obviously, she chooses the latter. What follows is a genuinely well-choreographed action comedy sequence. Big Momma, still in full costume, has to take on multiple armed criminals while simultaneously keeping the kids safe and preventing Leah from escaping with the worm. The physical comedy here is top tier, Lawrence using Big Momma's bulk as both an advantage and a handicap, turning everyday household items into weapons, and maintaining the character's voice and personality even while fighting for her life. There's a moment where the fat suit actually takes a bullet, the padding literally saves Malcolm's life, and it's played as both a comedic beat and a genuine close call. The costume that's been the source of so much discomfort throughout the film becomes the thing that protects him. The FBI arrives, chaos ensues, and in the confusion, Big Momma's wig gets torn off. Not completely, just enough that the illusion starts to crack. One of the criminals sees Malcolm's real face underneath and has a moment of complete confusion that's genuinely hilarious. "What the hell are you?" he asks, and it's a fair question. Tom Fuller, finally understanding what's been happening, has his own moment of reckoning. His wife is a criminal, his nanny is a federal agent, his entire life has been a lie. But instead of falling apart, he steps up. He protects his kids, he helps Malcolm fight off the criminals, and he shows more spine in 5 minutes than he has in the entire film up to this point. Nia, cornered and knowing the game is up, makes one last desperate play. She grabs the worm's hard drive and tries to run, but Big Momma tackles her, literally, just a full-on tackle that would make an NFL linebacker proud. The two women, well, one woman and one man in a fat suit, tumble across the lawn, and Nia finally realizes who she's been fighting. The look on her face when Big Momma's wig comes completely off is priceless. It's not just surprise, it's the understanding that she's been completely outplayed, that the chaos in her household wasn't incompetence but a carefully orchestrated investigation, resolution and reflection. In the aftermath, the Fuller family has to pick up the pieces. Nia is arrested, Tom is cleared of wrongdoing but faces the reality of raising 3 kids as a single father, and the children have to process the fact that their mother was living a double life. Big Momma, Malcolm, really, though he stays in character for this final conversation, sits down with the kids one last time. He tells them that what their mother did was wrong, but it doesn't mean she didn't love them. He tells them that their father is a good man who's going to need their help to become a better dad. And he tells them that they're strong enough to get through this, that families aren't defined by their worst moments but by how they respond to them. It's a surprisingly mature conversation to have in what's ostensibly a broad comedy, and the film doesn't shy away from the real pain these kids are feeling. Molly is angry, Carrie is hurt, and Andrew doesn't fully understand but knows something important has changed. Malcolm as Big Momma doesn't try to fix everything with platitudes. He just sits with them in their pain and offers what comfort he can. Then comes the big reveal. With the children's permission, Malcolm removes the wig, peels off the prosthetics, and shows them who he really is. Their reactions range from shock to confusion to, eventually, a kind of understanding. The person who cared for them, who saw them and helped them, was real even if the appearance wasn't. Was any of it true? Molly asks, and Malcolm answers honestly, the parts that mattered were. Tom Fuller, watching this, extends his hand to Malcolm and thanks him. Not for the investigation, not for catching his criminal wife, but for caring about his children when they needed someone. It's a moment of genuine male vulnerability that the film earns through everything that's come before. Malcolm returns home to his own family, and the contrast is stark. His house feels smaller, quieter, more real. Sherri is waiting, and she can see immediately that something has changed in her husband. They don't have a big emotional conversation, this film is too smart for that. Instead, Malcolm just asks her about Trent's day, about what he missed, about what matters. The final scene shows Malcolm at Trent's karate practice again, but this time he's fully present. Not checking his phone, not thinking about work, just watching his son. And when Trent looks over and sees his dad actually paying attention, his entire demeanor changes. He's more confident, more focused, more willing to try. The film ends with Malcolm folding up the Big Momma costume and putting it in storage, presumably forever. He's learned what he needed to learn, become who he needed to become. The costume was a tool, a disguise, but the lessons it taught him about presence, about care, about the work of actually showing up for people, those are permanent. Roll credits. Character analysis and performances. Malcolm Turner, Big Momma, The Divided Self. Martin Lawrence's dual performance as Malcolm Turner and Big Momma is the engine that drives this entire film, and it deserves more critical respect than it typically receives. This isn't just a man putting on a costume and doing a funny voice, it's a legitimately skilled character performance that requires physical comedy, emotional depth, and the ability to make us believe in two completely different people inhabiting the same space. As Malcolm, Lawrence plays a man in crisis, though he doesn't realize it at first. He's made all the right choices according to society's expectations. He's taken a safer job to be present for his family. He's committed to his marriage. He's trying to be a good father. But there's a restlessness in Lawrence's performance, a sense that Malcolm feels he's betrayed some fundamental part of himself by choosing domestic stability over career excitement. Watch Lawrence's body language in the early scenes. As Malcolm, he's constricted, tight, moving with a kind of controlled energy that suggests someone holding themselves back. His interactions with Sherri are loving but strained, and Lawrence plays the guilt beautifully. Malcolm knows he's not fully present even when he's physically there. But as Big Momma, Lawrence completely transforms. And I don't just mean the obvious physical transformation, though that's impressive enough, given that he's acting through layers of prosthetics that must severely limit his facial expressions. I mean the way he moves, the way he carries himself, the way he interacts with space and other people. Big Momma takes up room. She's confident, even aggressive in her presence. She doesn't apologize for her size or her opinions. She's maternal but not soft, caring but not permissive. Lawrence gives her a complete internal life. Big Momma has opinions about everything from child rearing to cooking to how people should conduct themselves in polite society, and she's not shy about sharing them. The voice work is particularly impressive. Lawrence doesn't just pitch his voice higher and call it a day. Big Momma has a different rhythm to her speech, a different set of verbal tics and patterns. She uses language that Malcolm wouldn't use, references cultural touchstones from a different generation, and has a way of cutting through nonsense with a perfectly timed observation that feels authentic to the character rather than to the comedian playing her. But here's what makes the performance truly work. Lawrence makes us believe that Big Momma is who Malcolm wishes he could be. As himself, Malcolm is constrained by expectations, by professional demands, by the weight of masculinity and responsibility. As Big Momma, he's free to be nurturing, emotional, direct, and fully engaged. The disguise doesn't hide who Malcolm is, it reveals who he could be if he allowed himself the freedom. There are moments throughout the film where you can see Malcolm bleeding through Big Momma's performance, and these are some of Lawrence's best acting moments. When Big Momma talks to Carrie about being true to yourself, you can see Malcolm thinking about his own son. When she confronts the other suburban moms, you can see Malcolm's anger at social hierarchies and fake politeness. The character becomes a vehicle for Malcolm's growth, and Lawrence plays both levels simultaneously. The physical comedy is also worth celebrating. Lawrence is working under significant physical constraints. The fat suit limits his mobility, the prosthetics affect his vision and hearing, the costume is hot and uncomfortable. Yet he commits to complex physical comedy bits that require precise timing and body control. The scene where Big Momma does a cheerleading routine, yes, that happens, is a marvel of physical comedy. Lawrence is basically doing choreography while wearing what amounts to a full-body restriction suit. The Fuller family, broken but believable. Emily Procter's Leah Fuller could have been a one-dimensional villain, but Procter finds layers in the character that make her sympathetic even as she's revealed to be a criminal. In her early scenes, Leah is clearly drowning. She's overwhelmed by domestic responsibilities, frustrated by her husband's emotional absence, and desperately trying to maintain the appearance of having it all together. Procter plays Leah's exhaustion as real and earned. This isn't a character who's faking being tired for sympathy, she's genuinely running on empty, trying to be everything to everyone while feeling supported by no one. When she snaps at her kids or makes passive-aggressive comments to her husband, it doesn't feel cruel, it feels like someone at the end of their rope. The revelation that Leah is the criminal mastermind recontextualizes everything we've seen, and in a second viewing, you can see Procter layering in the calculation beneath the chaos. She's a good actress playing a good actress. Leah is performing the role of overwhelmed suburban mom, and Procter shows us both the performance and the performer. What makes Leah tragic rather than simply villainous is that her crimes are motivated by a desire to provide for her family, to give them the lifestyle she thinks they deserve. It's a twisted logic, but Procter makes us understand it. She's not robbing banks for yachts and jewelry, she's funding her children's education, maintaining their home, ensuring their social status. The film wisely doesn't excuse her actions, but it does explain them in ways that feel human rather than cartoonish. The kids are all surprisingly well cast and well directed. Kat Dennings, who would go on to significant success in Two Broke Girls and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, shows early signs of her comedic timing as Molly. She plays the teenage daughter with just the right mix of eye-rolling disdain and underlying vulnerability. Molly is mean to Big Momma because she's afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of being seen. When Big Momma breaks through that armor, Dennings shows us the scared kid underneath. Chloë Grace Moretz, who was about 8 years old during filming, is remarkable as Carrie. She brings a quiet intensity to the role, playing Carrie as an old soul trapped in a child's body. The scenes where she talks about her art, about being different, about feeling invisible, Moretz plays these with a maturity that's genuinely moving. You believe this kid is an artist, that she sees the world differently, and that she's paying a social price for her vision. The youngest Fuller child, Andrew, could have been just an annoying comedy prop, but the child actor, Preston Bailey, actually finds moments of real character. Yes, Andrew is chaos incarnate, but there are scenes where you see that he's acting out because he's not getting the attention and structure he needs. When Big Momma starts giving him tasks and responsibilities, Andrew responds immediately. He doesn't want to be wild, he just doesn't know how to ask for help being civilized. Tom Fuller, played by Mark Moses, is perhaps the least developed major character, but that's somewhat intentional. He's meant to represent the checked-out dad, the guy who's physically present but emotionally absent. Moses plays him as well-meaning but oblivious, a man who's convinced himself that providing financially is the same as providing emotionally. His arc, from distant father to engaged parent, happens largely off-screen, but Moses sells the transformation in his final scenes with enough conviction that we believe it. Supporting characters, the ecosystem. The supporting cast fills out the world effectively. Doug Hudson, Malcolm's FBI partner, serves as both comic relief and the voice of professional pressure. He's constantly reminding Malcolm of the mission, pushing him to prioritize the investigation over the domestic complications. Their partnership has an easy chemistry that suggests years of working together. The other suburban moms in Leah's social circle are painted in broad strokes but serve their purpose. They represent the social hierarchies and petty cruelties that make suburban life its own kind of warfare. Big Momma's interactions with them provide some of the film's sharpest social commentary. These women are policing each other constantly, judging parenting styles and lifestyle choices, creating an environment where everyone is performing competence while falling apart privately. Sherri, Malcolm's wife, appears less in this film than in the original, but Nia Long makes the most of her limited screen time. She plays Sherri as loving but frustrated, a woman who's been patient with her husband's career but is reaching the limits of that patience. Long gives Sherri enough strength that we understand why Malcolm respects her boundaries, why her opinion matters to him. She's not a nag or an obstacle, she's a full partner who's asking for the basic respect of honesty and presence. Themes, symbolism, and subtext. The performance of identity. At its core, Big Momma's House 2 is about the roles we play and the cost of maintaining them. Every major character is performing some version of themselves for public consumption. Malcolm performs the role of devoted family man while dreaming of professional glory. Leah performs the role of perfect suburban mom while running a criminal enterprise. Tom performs the role of provider while emotionally abandoning his children. The kids perform various roles to survive their dysfunctional family dynamics. Big Momma herself is the ultimate performance, a constructed identity that Malcolm uses to navigate situations that his authentic self couldn't handle. But the film asks an interesting question: which is the performance and which is the truth? Is Malcolm pretending to be Big Momma, or is Big Momma revealing parts of Malcolm that he usually keeps hidden? The fat suit and prosthetics function as both literal and metaphorical disguise. Literally, they allow Malcolm to go undercover. Metaphorically, they represent the layers of protection we all wear to move through the world. Big Momma's physical bulk becomes a kind of armor that allows Malcolm to be vulnerable in ways he couldn't be in his own body. There's also something fascinating about the gender performance at play. Malcolm, as a man, feels constrained by expectations of masculine stoicism and emotional distance. As Big Momma, a woman, he's given social permission to be nurturing, emotional, and physically affectionate. The film doesn't interrogate this too deeply. It's still primarily a comedy, but the implications are there. Our gender roles limit us, and freedom sometimes requires stepping outside them entirely. Work-life balance and the cost of ambition. The film's central conflict is fundamentally about the impossible balance between career success and family presence. Malcolm wants both. He wants to be the heroic FBI agent and the devoted father, but the film makes clear these roles are largely incompatible. Undercover work requires complete immersion, and you can't be completely immersed in a case while also being present for your child's karate practice. What's interesting is that the film doesn't present an easy answer. Malcolm doesn't quit the FBI entirely at the end. He just commits to being more selective about his assignments and more honest about his limitations. The resolution isn't Malcolm choosing family over career, but Malcolm learning to integrate both parts of himself more honestly. Tom Fuller's arc provides a parallel exploration. He's physically present, working from home, technically available, but completely checked out emotionally. His presence without engagement is shown to be just as damaging as Malcolm's physical absence. The film suggests that what matters isn't proximity but genuine attention and care. Leah's criminal activities are portrayed as a twisted version of providing for one's family. She's broken bad, essentially, but for maternal reasons rather than masculine ego. Looking at you, Walter White. The film shows how easily the pressure to provide can metastasize into justifying increasingly extreme measures. Leah convinces herself she's doing it for her kids, but really she's trapped in a cycle where maintaining their lifestyle requires ever more dangerous criminal activity. Class, suburbia, and the American dream. The Fuller household represents a very specific vision of the American dream, upper-middle-class suburbia, with its manicured lawns, community organizations, and social hierarchies. But the film systematically deconstructs this dream, showing how the appearance of perfection conceals dysfunction, crime, and emotional distance. The suburban mom scenes are particularly biting in their social commentary. These women are performing a specific class performance, the perfect hostess, the involved mother, the cultured sophisticate. But beneath the performance is anxiety, competition, and a constant fear of falling short. Big Momma, coming from outside this system, sees through it immediately and refuses to play along, which is both comedic and somewhat subversive. The film also touches on surveillance culture in interesting ways. The FBI's ability to insert an agent into a family's private life, to monitor their every move, to collect data without consent, these are treated as necessary for national security, but they're also shown to be deeply invasive. Malcolm sees things he has no business seeing, learns family secrets that aren't his to know. The film doesn't fully interrogate the ethics of this, but it's aware of them. Motherhood and care work. Perhaps accidentally, Big Momma's House 2 ends up being one of the more interesting explorations of emotional labor and care work in mid-2000s comedy. When Malcolm becomes Big Momma and takes on nanny responsibilities, he's suddenly immersed in the kind of invisible labor that keeps families functioning: meal prep, emotional regulation, conflict mediation, schedule management, and constant vigilance. The film shows how exhausting this work is. Big Momma is constantly putting out fires, managing personalities, anticipating needs, and maintaining household order. And crucially, all of this work is in addition to Malcolm's actual job of conducting surveillance. The dual workload becomes unbearable, which is the point. This is what working mothers do every day, and the film, perhaps unintentionally, makes that visible. When Malcolm returns to his own family at the end, he has a new appreciation for what Sherri manages daily. He's literally lived the experience of trying to balance work and domestic responsibilities, and it's changed his understanding of what constitutes real work. The ethics of deception. The film has a complicated relationship with honesty. Malcolm lies to the Fuller family constantly, about who he is, why he's there, what he wants. The film treats this as necessary for the investigation, but it also shows the moral cost. The kids come to trust Big Momma, to depend on her, to see her as a safe adult in their chaotic lives. When the truth comes out, that trust is betrayed. The film tries to resolve this by having Malcolm reveal himself and have an honest conversation with the kids, but it can't entirely erase the ethical murkiness. He used their vulnerability for professional purposes, even if he came to genuinely care about them. The relationship was built on lies, even if the emotions became real. Leah's deception of her family provides a darker mirror. She's lied about who she is and what she does, putting her children at risk for financial gain. The film clearly condemns this, but it's not entirely different in kind from what Malcolm does, just in degree and motivation. Fatherhood and masculinity. Underneath everything, this is a film about fatherhood and what it means to be a man. Malcolm is struggling with a very contemporary masculine crisis: how to be strong and protective while also being present and nurturing, how to be a provider while also being a parent, how to balance ambition with responsibility. Big Momma allows Malcolm to explore aspects of masculinity that are typically coded as feminine: care, nurturing, emotional openness, vulnerability. The film suggests that these aren't separate from masculinity but are actually essential to it. A good father isn't just strong, he's also tender. He doesn't just provide money, he provides presence. Tom Fuller represents the failure mode, the father who's so checked out that he might as well not be there. His redemption comes not from some action hero moment but from choosing to show up, to engage, to actually see his children. The film suggests that this kind of everyday courage is more impressive than any professional achievement. Technical and artistic review. Direction and pacing. John Whitesell's direction is workmanlike but effective. He's not trying to reinvent comedy filmmaking here. This is a studio comedy with a specific audience and a specific purpose. But within those constraints, he makes smart choices. The pacing is generally strong, keeping the film moving without feeling rushed. At 99 minutes, it's lean enough that scenes don't overstay their welcome. Whitesell understands that the comedy comes from situation and character rather than from individual jokes, so he gives scenes room to breathe while maintaining forward momentum. The action sequences in the third act are surprisingly well choreographed. Whitesell has to balance comedy and genuine tension, and he mostly succeeds. The fights are funny but not purely slapstick, there's real danger, real stakes, and the comedy comes from Big Momma's incongruous presence in an action scenario rather than from undercutting the tension entirely. Where the direction occasionally falters is in the tonal shifts. The film moves between broad comedy, emotional drama, action, and social commentary, and not all of these transitions are smooth. There are moments where we whiplash from a silly comedy bit to a serious conversation about parental neglect, and it doesn't always land cleanly. Cinematography and visual style. The cinematography by Anthony B. Richmond is clean and professional without being particularly distinctive. This is brightly lit, clearly composed suburban filmmaking, everything is visible, nothing is obscured, and the visual style serves the story rather than calling attention to itself. The Fuller house is shot to emphasize its upper-middle-class perfection, all neutral tones and carefully chosen decor. It's the kind of space that looks great in magazine spreads but doesn't feel particularly lived in, which suits the film's themes about performance and appearance. The camera work during the physical comedy sequences deserves credit for keeping the frame wide enough that we can see Lawrence's full-body performance. Too many modern comedies cut too quickly or frame too tightly, obscuring the physical comedy. Richmond and Whitesell understand that we need to see the full performer to appreciate the physical skill involved. Editing. The editing by Craig Herring maintains the comedy rhythm effectively. Comedy is about timing, and editing is crucial to getting that timing right. Herring generally knows when to cut and when to hold, though there are occasional moments where a beat needed to breathe longer or a scene could have been trimmed. The cross-cutting between Malcolm's surveillance work and the domestic chaos is handled well, creating a sense of mounting pressure as both aspects of his mission become more demanding. The parallel editing emphasizes how Malcolm is being pulled in two directions simultaneously. Music and sound design. The score by Mark Shaman is pleasant but largely unremarkable. It supports the scenes without drawing attention to itself. This is functional film scoring, giving us emotional cues and maintaining energy without becoming intrusive. The soundtrack includes a mix of R&B, hip-hop, and pop that was contemporary for 2006, helping to ground the film in its moment. The music choices during montages are effective without being surprising. Sound design is used effectively in the physical comedy sequences, with exaggerated impacts and movements that enhance the slapstick without becoming cartoonish. Costume and makeup. The real technical achievement of the film is the Big Momma costume and prosthetics. This is a massive undertaking. Lawrence is wearing what amounts to a full-body costume that has to be convincing enough that the audience believes other characters would be fooled, while also being functional enough that Lawrence can perform in it. The prosthetics work is impressive. Big Momma's face is detailed and expressive, allowing Lawrence's performance to come through while maintaining the disguise. The bodysuit has to move convincingly, maintain its shape under stress, and withstand hours of wear during filming. The wardrobe for Big Momma strikes a balance between comedy and believability. The clothes are somewhat outrageous, loud prints, bold colors, but they're also what an older woman of Big Momma's generation and personality might actually wear. It's character specific rather than just funny fat suit clothes. Critical review and comparisons. What works? Big Momma's House 2 succeeds primarily through Martin Lawrence's committed performance and the film's willingness to take its emotional beats seriously. This could have been a lazy cash grab sequel that just recycled the original's formula without adding anything new. Instead, it finds a different emotional register by focusing on parenthood and family dynamics rather than romance. The supporting cast, particularly the child actors, elevate the material. When you believe the kids' problems are real and that they genuinely need help, Big Momma's investment in them becomes meaningful rather than just a plot device. The film also deserves credit for its surprisingly thoughtful approach to work-life balance and gender roles. It's not subtle about these themes, but it's sincere, and that sincerity gives weight to moments that could otherwise play as pure schmaltz. The physical comedy is genuinely impressive. Lawrence is working under significant constraints and still delivering precision comic performances that require athleticism, timing, and body control. What doesn't work? The central investigation plot is the film's weakest element. The FBI storyline feels perfunctory, existing only to justify Big Momma's presence in the Fuller household. The twists aren't particularly surprising, the stakes never feel genuinely high, and the resolution comes too easily. Some of the comedy bits don't land. There are jokes that feel forced, moments that go for the obvious laugh rather than the earned one, and sequences that drag when they should snap. The cheerleading scene, while technically impressive, goes on too long and exists primarily for the spectacle rather than serving character or story. The film occasionally talks down to its audience, spelling out themes and emotions that would be better shown than stated. There are moments where characters explain their feelings in ways that feel like screenplay notes that accidentally made it into dialogue. The resolution of Leah's storyline feels somewhat rushed. The film spends so much time building her as a character that her final fate, arrested and removed from the narrative, feels abrupt. A scene showing the kids visiting her in jail or Tom helping them process their mother's crimes would have provided better emotional closure. Comparison to similar films. Big Momma's House 2 exists in a tradition of disguise comedies that includes Mrs. Doubtfire, Tootsie, Sister Act, and of course its own predecessor. Compared to the original Big Momma's House, this sequel is warmer and more family-focused but less tightly plotted and slightly less funny. Mrs. Doubtfire is probably the closest comparison. Both films feature a man disguised as a woman to gain access to children, both explore themes of fatherhood and presence, both mix physical comedy with genuine emotion. Big Momma's House 2 lacks Mrs. Doubtfire's polish and Robin Williams' manic energy, but it has its own appeal through Lawrence's more grounded, soulful approach. Compared to contemporary comedies like Daddy Daycare or Are We Done Yet? Big Momma's House 2 is more ambitious in its comedy and more willing to get physical. It doesn't have the gentle, safe quality of those films, it's broader, louder, and occasionally more uncomfortable. As a sequel specifically, it's more successful than most comedy sequels of its era. It doesn't just replay the original's greatest hits, though it does some of that. It finds a new context and new emotional stakes. It's not as good as the original, but it justifies its existence more than, say, Bruce Almighty vs. Evan Almighty or The Mask vs. Son of the Mask. Critical reception and box office. Critics were not kind to Big Momma's House 2. It currently sits at about 6% on Rotten Tomatoes, with reviews calling it tired, unfunny, and unnecessary. Roger Ebert gave it 1 star, writing that the movie is a deadening experience, not funny, not insightful, not honest. But audiences were more forgiving. The film earned $141 million worldwide on a $40 million budget, making it a solid commercial success. It opened at number 1 at the domestic box office and held well through its run. The divide between critics and audiences is telling. Critics saw a lazy sequel retreading familiar territory with diminishing returns. Audiences saw Martin Lawrence doing what he does best, providing family-friendly entertainment that mixed laughs with heart. In retrospect, both perspectives have validity. The film is flawed, formulaic, and occasionally lazy. But it's also sincerely performed, occasionally insightful about family dynamics, and built around a genuinely impressive physical comedy performance. Where it fits in Lawrence's career. For Martin Lawrence, Big Momma's House 2 represented both a commercial safe harbor and a creative cul-de-sac. The film proved he could still open movies and that his brand of comedy had an audience. But it also typecast him in a specific kind of role, the family-friendly comedy that mixed broad humor with heart. After this film, Lawrence would struggle to find projects that captured either the commercial success of Big Momma or the critical respect of his earlier work. The Big Momma franchise would continue with a 3rd installment in 2011, Big Momma's, Like Father, Like Son, but with diminishing returns both critically and commercially. Looking back, Big Momma's House 2 represents a specific moment in Lawrence's career when he was still a big enough star to carry a major studio release but was beginning to be boxed in by his previous successes. He was a movie star without the diversity of roles that would let him grow as an artist. Cultural impact and legacy. Big Momma's House 2 didn't leave a huge cultural footprint beyond its immediate box office success. It's not particularly quotable, it didn't generate memes, this was pre-meme culture as we know it, and it's not the kind of film that inspired passionate fan communities. But it does exist in the cultural memory as part of that mid-2000s wave of broad studio comedies that studios don't really make anymore. The mid-budget star comedy has largely disappeared from Hollywood, replaced by either low-budget indies or massive franchise tentpoles. Big Momma's House 2 feels like a relic from another era of filmmaking. The film's approach to disguise and identity feels particularly dated in our current moment of increased sensitivity around representation and identity politics. The idea of a man dressing as a woman purely for comedy raises questions about gender performance and mockery that the film doesn't engage with because it predates those conversations entering mainstream discourse. That said, there's something almost refreshing about the film's earnestness and lack of cynicism. It wants to make you laugh, but it also wants to make you feel. It believes in family, in presence, in the possibility of growth and change. That kind of sincere sentiment is harder to find in modern comedy, which often hides behind irony and self-awareness. Final verdict. Big Momma's House 2 is not a great film. It's not even a particularly good film by most objective measures. It's formulaic, predictable, and occasionally lazy in its comedy. The plot is thin, some jokes fall flat, and it doesn't have the sharpness or originality that defines truly memorable comedy. But here's the thing, it's also kind of wonderful in its own way. This is a film that knows exactly what it wants to be and commits to that vision completely. Martin Lawrence gives a full-bodied, physically demanding, emotionally present performance that deserves respect even if the material doesn't always deserve him. The film has genuine heart, sincere things to say about parenthood and presence, and moments of real emotional truth buried within the absurdity. It's the kind of film that you watch with family on a lazy Sunday afternoon and everyone finds something to enjoy. The kids laugh at the physical comedy, the parents appreciate the themes about work-life balance, and everyone can agree that watching Martin Lawrence in a fat suit fight criminals is inherently entertaining. Is it art? No. Is it important cinema that will be studied in film schools? Absolutely not. But is it a perfectly acceptable way to spend 99 minutes if you want to laugh and feel without having to think too hard? Yes. The film's greatest achievement is making Big Momma feel like a real character rather than just a costume. By the end, we care about her, we believe in her, and we understand what she represents, the freedom to be fully present, fully caring, and fully ourselves without the constraints of who we think we should be. For Malcolm Turner, Big Momma is the persona that allows him to become his best self. For the Fuller children, she's the maternal presence they desperately need. For audiences, she's a vehicle for exploring questions about identity, family, and authenticity while also watching a large man in a dress karate chop bad guys. That's not nothing. Big Momma's house too understands that comedy doesn't have to be sophisticated to be effective, that heart doesn't require complexity to be genuine, and that sometimes the most powerful transformations come from simply allowing yourself to care without reservation. It's a silly, sweet, occasionally stupid film that somehow manages to say something true about the masks we wear and the people we become when we take them off. Final rating, 6.5 out of 10. It's a guilty pleasure that doesn't require much guilt, a sequel that justifies its existence more than most, and a showcase for a committed comic performance that deserves more recognition than it gets. Watch it with family, watch it when you need comfort food cinema, or watch it to appreciate Martin Lawrence's underrated skills as a physical comedian and character actor. Just maybe don't watch it expecting high art or revolutionary comedy. Watch it for what it is, a big, warm, slightly chaotic hug of a movie that wants you to laugh, to feel, and to remember that sometimes the best thing we can do is simply show up for the people who need us. And really, in a world that often feels cold and cynical, maybe that's exactly the kind of message we need, even if it comes wrapped in a fat suit and a floral dress.
All right, my little ones, introduce yourselves.
I'm Sarah. I love dolls. I'm Tommy. I build things. I'm Alex.
I have this time. Play. Whoa there. Just testing the walls. Ha! Nailed it. Well, hello there, house. Big Mama's here to make myself at home. This place needs a little Big Momma magic. Whoa! Get back! Stop this madness! It's working! Well, almost there!